everybody, Professor Wills here. Well, we are continuing with our examination of the ancient world in our art history class, and we're ready to start a new unit on the Etruscans. This will move us out of Greece and into Italy. So if Etruscan sounds a little bit like Tuscan or Tuscany, that'll pretty much put you in the location in sort of north central Italy, where they were known to have their many kingdoms. The Etruscans, for the longest time, were misunderstood. It was believed that they were sort of the forerunners of what would become the Roman civilization, that mighty empire that stretched over 3 continents that we'll be studying in this class as well. But indeed, it was only in the probably early 20th century where scholarship started to document that and make discoveries that they were their own distinct civilization. In that location, of course, they were adept at seafaring. They had an active trade with surrounding cultures and civilizations. What we're going to be starting out with in this class is kind of concurrent to Archaic period Greece. So we're going to be drawing some comparisons, but also it's important to underscore that though some things may seem familiar, when we get to some of their sculptures, for instance, it is still distinctly Etruscan. There's a lot of characteristics that are unique to this civilization. They even spoke their own language, and we'll talk about women and how different their lifestyles were in the Etruscan world as well. And we're going to talk about something we haven't talked about since ancient Egypt, the return of the necropolis. And if you thought the ones in Egypt were impressive, wait till you see what the Etruscans built. All right, moving on to our PowerPoint then. I'm going to minimize myself and move on to some slides as I introduce this very interesting civilization based out of present-day Italy. All right, opening slide here. So we're in the timeline of things. We're still firmly in the BC years. Don't worry, we're going to escape that pretty soon, but we're looking about 7th century, 700 to 89 BC. Just some fun slides for you here. I'll take myself away for a second here so you can see that corny travel poster with a probably a Ferrari driving through beautiful Tuscany. A postcard view of Tuscany above that. You can see why it's such a popular destination, known for its beauty, very similar to maybe the central or Napa Valley of California in terms of its beauty and climate. And of course, a map of Italy on your left here will give you a sense of what we're talking about. So this is the whole region of the Etruscan world based out of Tuscany. So we'll be focusing on different locations and opening up at Cerveteri. This is where we're going to meet our first necropolis. But first, let me show you some of the riches associated with the Etruscan world, including something called the fibula. So a fibula is like a piece of jewelry, like a brooch. It was used to, when they would wear those toga-like robes in antiquity, it was used to kind of attach it at the shoulder instead of tying a knot like you might do if you're college toga party. But in any event, it was a gold object, which indicates again about the wealth of the Etruscans, that they had these kind of luxury objects of beauty and adornment that they wore, like this fibula with orientalizing lions from the years 650 to 640 BCE. The lions can be seen in a double row right here. Let me show you a little close-up of them. And you can see here they have a side view. And again, it's possibly an influence either from Egypt or Mesopotamia, this use of animals like lions, which aren't indigenous to Italy, but the idea of a powerful beast and the messaging we've studied so far for animals like that. But let's move on to that city of the dead, as I promised. Pop out again just for the purposes of you reading the information below this aerial view of this necropolis called the Banditaccia necropolis. It is a city of the dead in present-day Tuscany in Italy. And by the huge span of years, 7th to 2nd centuries BCE, you can see how widely and extensively it was used. It was not just something that appeared one century and disappeared the next. There was extreme cultural dedication to interring the remains of their dead at this location. So whereas the Greeks buried their dead in graves and perhaps used grave markers like craters or those Kuro statues we talked about before, it was uncommon for them to build huge tombs or mausoleums, like the Egyptians did, for instance. But you find with the Etruscans, this is something that was of kind of importance to them. Now, similar to other civilizations we've talked about is this focus on the dead, and this particular necropolis is extensive. It stretches over 200 acres. I'll pop back to you. Hello again. And is arranged, believe it or not, like a real city, with some urban planning for the dead, with organized along a network of streets. There are thousands of tombs, by the way, as well, which is just very fascinating. Here's a ground view of what some of these tombs look like. So they are domed structures. Here are the doorways here. They are mounded, very similar to another structure we looked at in recent lectures. The Treasury of Atreus, you might remember from the year 1300, is a very similar domed structure. Now, the Mycenaeans over on mainland Greece in antiquity would build those from concentric rings of stone, and then the earth would be piled on top of it. It too served as a tomb, but a treasury as well. But the difference with the Etruscans, and disregard my dog, I'm getting a mail delivery, is that they would excavate below ground. So the tomb was not under that dome. The dome was a structure to protect the tomb, but then they would excavate below ground in many ways like the Egyptians did back in Egypt. So what's also interesting is, shall I say, the coziness of Etruscan tombs. These are not, spaces that are going to creep you out at all. The idea is to make the experience of the afterlife an extension of the life you lived on terra firma, on Mother Earth. And so on the left we have the Tomb of Shields and Chairs. This is one of the well-known tombs at the Banditaccia necropolis in Cerveteri in Italy, dating from 550 to 500 BCE. So take a look inside here. So part of the reason why I'm referencing home is the stone furniture that's included. You can see 2 chairs right here. You can also see 2 beds laid out right here. There are also these circular shields that give the tomb its names in tandem with those chairs. So originally this would have been all painted. Perhaps the shields was like a family crest, delineating which specific family this tomb belonged to. And it wasn't just to inter one individual. As I mentioned, these were family tombs. So looking at this drawing of an architectural plan, here are the 2 chairs of the main room that you see over in that photo here, and the beds I referenced as well. But there are additional rooms. You can see more beds here and over down here as well. So the idea is this can be a tomb for a multiple generations of one family. So it's almost like a family crypt, but even more square footage going on here. And look at all the homey details. You have chiseled from the bedrock. You have, molding, crown molding around the doors and the edges. You have stonework again, mimicking beams. Beams are very interior design, HGTV kind of homes. So all of these elements are supposed to, again, reproduce the idea of a home space with all of the comforts we like in our homes, in our forever future home at the Banditaccia necropolis. Another one I want to share with you is called the Tomb of Reliefs, dating from the late 4th century BCE, same location. This is probably a little bit more like my house, a bit more cluttered with objects that we can't seem to part with. But here, instead of flat beds, you have these kind of almost cubby-like spaces, even with stone pillows for your eternal sleep. And then all of the objects, literally in sculptural relief, again, excavated from below ground in the bedrock underneath those domes at the Banditaccia necropolis, practical objects, vases, axes and swords and rope. All of these are the kinds of objects you would, store in your house, store in your garage, practical things you need in life. And so, more everyday, more relatable than maybe the loads of goods stored into King Tut's tomb back in New Kingdom, Egypt. So this is what I'm talking about. And again, picture all of this painted at one point in time. And even though you have life-size dimensions for the beds, the Etruscans cremated their dead. So it's interesting that they took in those considerations to make those beds and the chairs, accommodate the physique of the living body when in fact they were cremating everybody anyway. All right, moving on, just a little detail shot of that same location. You can see this three-headed dog of the Etruscan Underworld. So just a little hint of their mythology going on there, but otherwise more shields and helmets and lots of practical objects adorning the walls of these comfy, cozy tombs. All right, couple more details for you. Finally, I want to work in another way that they would decorate these subterranean tombs. So the Etruscans are famous, like many civilizations, for their murals. So this one is located in the Tomb of Leopards. And it's got a vibe that you would see perhaps among the Minoans, who were also known for their festive, kind of lighthearted themes. And here what you can see are both male and female subjects lounging on couches and banqueting. It was very common for them to kind of literally crash on the couch and lounge and be served by servants who you see these standing figures bringing them drinks and food. And I'll show you a little detail shot here. And in doing so, it seems that what they're celebrating, of course, are, the continued enjoyment of the social aspects and celebratory qualities that they lived in life will continue in death. So again, these tombs don't have this kind of, macabre Edgar Allan Poe kind of vibe to them. They're joyful. They're filled with an extension of how these Etruscans lived life on Earth. Like the Minoans, it's interesting. What they would do is male figures would have a slightly darker complexion. This is a female figure with a lighter skinned look. That is how they describe different genders. What you find here, of course, as well, is an equal presentation of men and women included in Etruscan art. And I'll talk about that a little bit more with our next sculpture. It is a sarcophagus featuring a man and a wife, and we'll talk about how the women in the Etruscan world seem to enjoy an equitable society, more or less, which is far different than we've seen in other civilizations, particularly the ancient Greeks so far. So stay tuned for that. as we continue to examine this very unique